already explained that my high school is just a home office. When I get introduced at parties to somebody I don't know, the typical question is, well, what do you do? What's your work? And I say, well, I'm the director of a high school. And that immediately conjures up images of classrooms, multiple buildings, cafeteria, gym, playing fields, and lots of people arriving every day to study there. My high school has none of that. It is a converted half garage. And as you have heard from Dave, I've graduated lots of people, and they've gone on to do lots of things, including reaching the highest levels of education without having finished a traditional high school education. And one of the central points I want to make today is that you can do, as a parent, everything that I do. It is extremely easy to set up a legal private high school, or for that matter, a legal school at any level, in California under California law. The number of laws, the law book that contain all the education code, all the education laws in California, take up maybe 3 feet, 2 feet on a bookshelf. The number of laws that apply to private schools are a few pages of those multiple volumes of laws, and they are absolutely minimal. There is a link on the handout that Dave is passing out that will tell you exactly what you need to do if you want to set up your own independent private high school. I'll be glad to work with anybody who wants to work with me, but you can do anything and everything that I do entirely on your own. The handout is mostly for reference. It's mostly a short guide to how-to tools. What I do mostly today is tell you stories about what my students have accomplished, to give you some idea of what can happen if people don't go to a traditional high school or don't complete a full traditional high school education. The first person I want to tell you about is Matthew. While I was still teaching at Soquel High School, I was running a program for gifted and talented students. And Matthew was in that program for 1 year. And then for the second year, before he was able to leave high school, he went to the community college and took all of his classes there, which was a possibility in my gifted program, something I'd worked out with the community college. At the end of his second year in high school, but when he wasn't really in high school, he took the California High School Proficiency Exam, which is also a link to the website for that exam in the handout. It is CHSPE, California High School Proficiency Exam. And anybody can take that exam if they meet the eligibility criteria, and the criteria are you are 16 years old on the day of the test, or you have finished the second semester of the 10th grade, or you're an 11th grader through the 10th grade. Well, if you set up your own private high school, you can wave your magic administrative wand and say, well, such and such is 13 years old, but I just placed such and such in the 11th grade, which means that he must be through the 10th grade, which means that he must be eligible for the test. My granddaughter did that when she was 12 and passed the test and had a high school equivalent certificate. It's the CHSPE, which some people pronounce the CHESPE, and I've seen many students take that test. Matthew took that test at the end of his sophomore year, and again, remember, he wasn't taking high school classes, he was taking community college classes. And so he decided that once he passed that test, he had a high school equivalent certificate, he was legally entitled to leave high school, which he did, and that was the end of it. I want to read to you one paragraph, which is mostly in Matthew's words, that describes the kinds of things he was doing during high school and the time when he left. Once I passed the CHESPE, my relationship to any high school was complete. The threads of the tie that my following education, The threads that tie my following education together have mostly to do with Exploree's ways of making things. I borrowed and made tools and made things at home. These things were many and varied and included polished oak finger rings, skateboard ramps, and a rebuilt Porsche. I made houses, working with the contractors who built our family house when we first moved to Santa Cruz in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and later for a series of contractors starting with a good friend's father. Matthew took musical instruments apart and rebuilt them, wrote stories, explored photography, and learned computer programming, desktop publishing, and technical drawing. Well, while he was also doing that, he decided he also wanted to go to another community college. He went to De Anza College just up the road, because at that time he thought he was going to transfer to UC Berkeley, and De Anza had a really good record for getting people into UC Berkeley. So Matthew went to De Anza College, and he majored in engineering and music. Keep that in mind. He majored in engineering and music. He did that for a couple of years, and then he decided, well, okay, it's time for me to move on. It's time for me to do something else. So he went to Mexico primarily because his sister had been there, spent some time in Mexico, met some people in Colorado. They enticed him to return to the States and go to the mountains, but he didn't go to Colorado. He went to Utah. And there he spent 2 years being what he called a ski bum. And during those 2 years, he wasn't just a ski bum. He was also managing the darkroom of a newspaper, and he was learning a lot about photography. After his 2 years in Utah were up, Matthew went to Los Angeles, built a lot of things, constructed furniture and sold some, and got into the building trades in a serious kind of way. Then he decided, okay, I've done enough of this. It's time to go back to do some formal education. So, because of his record at Cabrillo College, or De Anza College, excuse me, he went on to Cal State University in Long Beach. And there he did not major in engineering, he did not major in music, he majored in creative writing. And there he got a degree in that subject. Then he decided, okay, back to building, moved to San Francisco, and among the things that he did in San Francisco were help to design a high-rise building and also to produce a lot of renderings and drawings. Then he decided, once again, it's time for more formal education. So he put together a lot of renderings and drawings and his academic credentials from the colleges, not from high school. High school had nothing to do with this. And he then applied to a number of architecture schools. He was accepted at every single one of them. And he decided then he would go to the school that offered the best financial aid package, which turned out to be Harvard. So Matthew went to Harvard, he got an advanced degree in architecture, and he is now an architect working out of Santa Cruz, but traveling to lots of distant places to help people design buildings. The reason I love to tell this story is because Matthew didn't do the kinds of things that you keep hearing you have to do in order to get into a top college, or any college for that matter. He didn't do any of it. Did he take the SAT? No. Did he take the ACT? No. Did he have a high school GPA that mattered? No. Did he do coursework in high school that mattered? No. Did he take AP classes? No. As a matter of fact, his 1 year in high school had nothing whatsoever to his getting into Cabrillo College, to his getting into De Anza College, to his getting into Cal State Long Beach, and to his getting into Harvard. He did all of that initially based on his community college record, and then to getting into Harvard was based on his community college studies and his studies at Cal State Long Beach. He didn't do any of the stuff that you keep hearing is absolutely essential if you want a college education. I'll return to my converted half garage, which is my high school, and tell you that my wife and I moved in there a little over a year ago. I didn't have my office at that time. We had a contractor do the conversion. And shortly after I was settled in my new home office, we decided that, well, we'd owned this house for 4 years already, but we had rented it, and the furnace had never been maintained. We didn't have a furnace at our old house and didn't think that it mattered, so finally we think, okay, we're in the house, we have a furnace, we better have it maintained. So I called up somebody, and they had a long waiting list, so I called up somebody else, got somebody to come out. Very knowledgeable and friendly and efficient young man did come out, and it turns out the access to the furnace is inside my office. So this young man, whose name was Micah, was working on the furnace, and I was sitting at my desk, which wasn't far away, and he was very, very patient in explaining to me what it is I needed to do to maintain the furnace on my own until the next service call, none of which I've done. And then when he was all done, he was writing up the bill, and he looked over at my desk, and I don't know what he saw, but he said, "Is this Beach High School?" I said, "Yes." "You graduated me," he said. So I got in touch with him later because he had promised me he'd tell me his story, which he did. And what Micah did is he went to high school for 3 years. He had an extremely hard time sitting still. He wasn't able to focus. He was easily distracted. And finally, for his senior year, he was homeschooled. And then he enrolled in my school in order to get a high school diploma. And I graduate people not based on their high school studies, not based on academic coursework, but on their own statement in a long, detailed narrative essay about their strengths and their goals and the kinds of things they want to accomplish, what they've already accomplished, and what their deepest passions are. So I graduated MICA, produced the narrative transcript that I typically produce for people in these circumstances who aren't interested in going on to college. He had been working for a surf shop and then a pool company, but he decided he wanted to do a serious search for something which would give him secure employment and in which he could earn a substantial amount of money. So he went to work, did a survey, decided, okay, what's for me is sheet metal work. So he got involved in a lot of testing, and because he did very well on the tests, he was given an apprenticeship, which lasted 5 years. He was only 1 year into that apprenticeship when he came to fix our furnace, but he did a very competent job. He had previously been working with other people who were teaching him the trade, but he came to our house on his own, and as I said, did a very, very good job. He told me that he is capable as a sheet metal worker and a furnace repairman, and ultimately someone who will probably work on much larger pieces of machinery, that he will be able to make a six-figure income in the right circumstances and in the right place. So he's well on his way. He has a secure income. He didn't get much out of high school because he had a hard time sitting still. And oh, by the way, in this apprenticeship, he is able to sit through 8-hour-long classes with no problems whatsoever with distraction or being able to sit still because, in my opinion, he is studying things that he wants to study, that he has chosen to study, and he knows where they lead. And also because what he is studying is learning how to do hands-on work, not sit at your desk and do head work. So he is one of my graduates that I'm very proud of because he found his own way, he found a way to make a good living without going to college, and he's doing the kinds of things that naturally support his natural skills and his passions. The last person I want to tell you about is a young woman named Rosie, and I will read this to you in her own words. When Rosie asked to graduate early from Beach High School, she wrote this: "While I was attending Harbor High School, I became very unhappy. I felt trapped and didn't even know who I was anymore. I felt foreign and unfamiliar even to my own thoughts, voice, and mind. I also felt incredibly drained physically, my health was weak, and I was sick a lot." This is what she wrote. This is part of what she wrote for me when she applied for graduation. I recently got back in touch with her, and in an email, she wrote this: "I earned my diploma from Beach High School 18 years ago. After graduating, I traveled through Europe, visiting several different countries and gaining a much wider perspective on life. I attended community college, exploring a variety of subject matters that interested me while I was obtaining my AA and working full-time. It was during this time that I discovered my innate drive to express myself through photographic arts. I went on to transfer to California College of the Arts, receiving the Faculty Honor Scholarship based on my portfolio. I graduated with a BFA in photography, academic honors, high distinction, a network of support, and a more developed sense of myself as an artist. I have worked as a photographer doing custom photo sessions, being commissioned to make large pieces for retail environments, and creating a travelage vintage-style photo booth. Most recently, my work has been published in a German art magazine. I am currently living in the Bay Area, working in the photo department at Wired magazine, and contemplating grad school. My decision to pursue my high school diploma through Beach High School was the catalyst for me to put my educational choices in my own hands and create my life on my own terms." Oh, I'm not done yet. So what I want to wind up by saying is this: if you want to support your kids through high school by doing what they are interested in doing and pursuing their passions and not doing sit-down desk work in curriculum that has been determined by distant people who don't know your kids, you are perfectly free to do that. As I said, there's a link on the handout to tell you exactly how to set up your own private high school, and the tricks are these. In a private high school, the state mandates nothing in terms of what the length of a school day or the length of a school year. You could theoretically say, my school year is 3 weeks long, there's an hour a day of schoolwork, and when it's over, and the rest of the time is vacation, if you wanted to do that. You have to offer to your kids the traditional subjects that are taught in public high schools. And that means you can say to your son or daughter, do you want to study English? And if the answer is no, fine, that takes care of English. And so on down the list. Physics, no. History, no. What do you want to do? Well, I want to learn how to play the bagpipes. Well, fine. Then we'll set that up and we'll support that. And the final thing, and the thing that makes what I do possible, the most important thing is there is absolutely nothing in state law that mandates what is required to graduate from a private high school. Nothing. So I graduate people on a statement that they're ready to move on. You feel confident in doing so. These are my interests. These are my goals. This is what I want to do. And you can do the same. Thanks.